kind of exploration in this meditation. But first, before we do that, we'll do some prayers, which will be up on the screen. You can recite the prayers if you want, or just do your own contemplation. And then we'll do some silent meditation. I'll lead a body scan to help relax, let go of tension. And then we'll do a body scan. And then some meditation on the breath for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And then I'll lead a analytical thinking meditation on this topic. Okay.
I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger.
So it's always good to have a clear idea of what our motivation is for doing the things that we do. That helps to kind of steer or guide our energy in the things that we do, and will ensure that the outcomes, the consequences of our actions will be as beneficial as possible for ourselves and others. And so we always try to generate an altruistic motivation for doing the things we do, especially when it comes to meditation, learning spiritual teachings, and so on. So it's really important that we try to have the most positive, meaningful, beneficial motivation we can. And if you're familiar with bodhicitta, the aspiration to become a Buddha, fully enlightened Buddha, to benefit all living beings, you can bring that into your mind and have that as your reason, your motivation for being here and doing this meditation we're going to do. If you're not familiar with bodhicitta, then you can use whatever thoughts, ideas work for you, help you to have an altruistic motivation. For example, the prayer we just recited, the four immeasurables, that expresses really beautiful thoughts and wishes, wishing everyone to be happy, to be free of suffering, to have joy that's without any sorrow, and to be free of bias, attachment to some, aversion for others. So if any of those thoughts, those wishes rings a bell, feels comfortable For you, you can bring that into your mind and think something like, well, yeah, I really do want to help others be more happy and less unhappy. So may I learn something in this meditation that will contribute to that will help me to help others, bring more positive energy into the world. So just take a few moments to think about why you're here and really do your best to have a positive, beneficial motivation. And let's take a few more minutes to try our best to be really settled down in the present and in a comfortable position. So when we meditate, whether you're sitting cross-legged or you're sitting in a chair, it's good to keep your back straight because that helps the mind to be more clear and focused, awake, alert. Other than the back being straight, the other parts of the body should be as relaxed as possible. So let's do a little body scan to check if there's any tension anywhere in the body. And if we do find any tension, to try to release it, let it go. So start with the top of your head. Feel the top of your head. Relax any tension you may have there. And then move your awareness down into your forehead. Let your forehead relax. Let go of any worry lines there may be in your forehead. Just let it be smooth and relaxed. And then feel your eyes and let your eyes relax. All the muscles around and behind the eyes. Relax all of the other muscles in your face. We have many muscles in our face we use when we talk and make facial expressions. But right now we can let those relax, including your mouth and jaw. Let go of any tension in those areas. And then relax the right side of your head. And the back of the head. And the left side of your head. And then relax the inside of your head, the brain, which is often very busy thinking about things. So if there's any tension inside of your head, in your brain, or any other parts of your head, just do your best to let them go, so that the whole of your head, inside and outside, is as relaxed as possible. And then move your awareness down into your neck. Relax your neck, the back of your neck, front of your neck, inside your throat. Continuing down, relax your shoulders and the upper part of your back. It's an area where we sometimes get tense, especially if you're working on a computer. Then let your awareness continue traveling down your back. Relax the muscles in the middle part of your back. The lower part of your back. All the way down to your seat. Let the whole of your back be as relaxed as possible. And if you're not able to let go of all tension, if there's still some tension left, that's okay. Just do your best to release, let go of tension. And then move your awareness to the front part of your body, starting with your chest. Relax the chest and what's inside the chest, lungs and heart. Continue with your awareness going down through your torso, relaxing the various organs and muscles in the diaphragm, the abdomen, down to the pelvic area. If there is any tension anywhere, you can just imagine that it melts and flows out of you, sinks into the earth below, or disappears in space. And now relax your right leg, starting with the upper part of the leg. And then the lower part of your leg. And then your right foot, including the ankle and toes. And then move over to the left leg, starting with the upper part. Relax your upper thigh, right, and it's left leg, sorry. And then the lower part of the left leg. And then left foot, ankle, and toes. Then shift your awareness to your right arm, starting with the top. Relax the upper part of your right arm. And then the lower part. And then your right hand and fingers. And then shift your awareness to the upper part of your left arm. Relax that. And then the lower part of that arm. And then your left hand and fingers. So do your best to keep your body as relaxed as possible for the remaining time of the meditation. If tension does pop up anywhere in the body, you can briefly put your awareness there and just let it go. Tell yourself to relax. Now turn your attention to your breathing. Become aware of your breathing. And do this without controlling your breath. Some people find that hard to do, but try to just let your body breathe on its own. It knows how to breathe. You don't have to control it. So just let your body breathe as it normally does. And then with your awareness, just in a sort of light way, be aware of the breath as it's coming in and going out. You can find your own way of doing that wherever you want to place your awareness, where you can feel the breath most easily, clearly. Just place your awareness at that point, and then be aware of each breath coming in, going out, coming in, going out, and so on. And you might want to try counting your breaths. It's optional, you don't have to, but it can be helpful to just keep your attention on your breath. So one way of counting is to just say to yourself, breathing in, breathing out, 1, breathing in, breathing out, 2, and then keep counting. If you're new to meditation, just count up to 5, then go back to 1. Keep counting in rounds of 5 breaths. If you're more experienced, you may want to count up to 10 and then go back to 1 each time. So again, that's optional. If you're able to keep your attention on your breathing without counting, then that's fine. The point is to stay with the breath as much as possible, and whenever your mind wanders away, like you hear a sound or a thought pops up, something you have to do later, or something that happened earlier today or yesterday. So it's completely normal that thoughts come up when we're meditating. We can't stop that from happening, but we can notice the thoughts and say, no, not now. Now I'm meditating. We put this thought aside and go back to the breath. So each time your mind wanders away from the breath to something else, just notice that, let it go, and come back to the breath. And be patient with yourself. It isn't easy to do this. It takes time and perseverance, so just keep doing it, being kind and patient with yourself. Now for the analytical part of the meditation. See if you can remember the last time you felt angry, but try to do this without getting angry all over again. So try to do it in an objective way, as if you're standing outside of yourself and looking at the anger without actually experiencing it. And it doesn't have to be an incident where you acted out your anger with words or actions. Maybe it was just thoughts running through your mind. So see if you can remember that. And then once you have recalled that incident, see if you can detect whether or not you have any sense of thinking anger is justified. It's right, it's correct to be angry. It's like in that situation where you felt angry. Was there also a sense of, well, I'm right to be angry. I should be angry. It's good to be angry in this situation. So probably everybody does feel their anger is justified, at least in some situations. And if we have that notion that it's right to be angry in certain situations, then we won't try to do anything about our anger. And instead we might just continue feeding it, nurturing it. So it's good to look at why we think anger is justified. So one idea mentioned in the book, and this is what some people think, including specialists in the field of mediation and conflict resolution, is the idea that we need anger in order to know when someone else's behavior is wrong and unacceptable. So what do you think about that? Does that ring true in your own experience? Do you think you need anger in order to know that another person is doing wrong? They're doing the wrong thing. If you didn't have anger, you wouldn't be able to recognize that. So if that idea was true, then people who don't have much anger, like spiritually evolved beings, or people who have no anger at all, like fully enlightened beings, they would not be able to recognize harmful behavior in someone else. They would see everyone's behavior as the same. For example, whether a parent is being loving and compassionate and kind toward their child, or if they're treating their child in a violent, harmful way. That they would think, oh, it's completely okay for that parent to harm their child. They wouldn't see anything wrong with that. So does that make sense? So what we learn in Buddhism is that beings who have advanced levels of insight and wisdom are very much aware of what kind of behavior is positive and beneficial and what kind of behavior is negative and harmful. And one reason for having such awareness is that right from the beginning of our spiritual journey, we start developing that kind of awareness with respect to our own behavior. This is a really important part of our own personal practice, training ourselves to stop doing what's harmful and do what is beneficial. And with this training, you become super sensitive, such that you can recognize even little inklings of thoughts that pop up in the mind of doing something harmful. And then you learn to stop those thoughts before they have a chance to turn into actions. So we watch ourselves, we watch our own body, speech, and mind with this awareness of what's helpful, and we try to do what's helpful and beneficial. And we also know what is harmful, and we try our best to avoid doing what is harmful. So we train ourselves with respect to our own actions of body, speech, and mind, and that makes you very sensitive to the behavior of others, so that you can easily recognize when someone else is acting in an afflicted, harmful way. So see if that makes sense, that when we practice mindfulness, carefulness with regard to our own actions of body, speech, and mind, then we can easily recognize when someone else is doing something harmful or about to do something harmful. But this doesn't mean being judgmental towards others and treating them in a harmful or condescending way. We also train ourselves to be patient and compassionate towards others, and then look for ways that we can help them get out of that harmful mode of being. So what this means is that we have other aspects of our mind, other mental faculties that enable us to recognize when someone is behaving in an inappropriate or even harmful way. That we don't really need anger to be able to recognize that. Often it's just a question of common sense. And also, anger clouds our mind, makes our mind agitated and sometimes irrational, so we can't think clearly and determine a reasonable course of action. Sometimes we act irrationally and harmfully when we're angry. And on the other hand, if we can keep our mind calm and clear and discerning, we'll be much better at assessing a situation and determining what would be wise and skillful ways of acting that will be helpful to everyone involved. So as a conclusion to this meditation, see if you can understand the value of checking whatever thoughts and ideas or beliefs you have about anger, things you've learned, read, heard, or what you've come up with on your own, so that your approach to working with anger will be wise and skillful, rather than deluded and unhelpful. And it isn't just Buddhists who think that anger isn't helpful. Someone recommended a book called The Anger Fallacy, Uncovering the Irrationality of the Angry Mindset, written by two Australian psychologists, Stephen Laurent and Ross Menzies. And so in this book, they examine and debunk a lot of the ideas people have about anger and, thinking anger is justified, they need anger, and so on. So if you're interested, you can just look it up, The Anger Fallacy, in case you're not convinced. Okay, so let's just mentally dedicate the merit, the positive energy of doing this meditation, just as we had altruistic intention at the beginning, wanting to benefit others. Let's mentally share the positive energy we've created with others. May it bring benefit, peace, happiness, and a reduction of anger. There's too much of it around. Oh, may everyone learn the benefits of working on their anger, overcoming their anger, and learning to be more kind and compassionate and patient. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Venerable. Venerable Khadro leaves the room. So now we'll have about a 13 or so minute break before Venerable Chodron gives the Dharma talk. So if you would like to, you can continue meditating in this.
Well, this is our first Sharing the Dharma Day in the Buddha Hall. Yay! Yeah. So it's interesting that on the first Sharing the Dharma Day in the Buddha Hall, the mood in the country right now is anger. And what's the book that we're going through? Working with Anger. Good coincidence, huh? Yeah. Yeah. For me personally, just looking at or reading, the comments in both in the main media. I stick with the, main media. But there's the left and there's the right in there too. And to me, the most alarming part is just the vitriol that is coming out, that people are expressing. Yeah. And my own experience, and maybe yours with anger too, is the more I nurture my anger, the angrier I get. Yeah. And the more I blame others, the angrier I get. And the angrier I get, the more unhappy I am. Yeah. Anger gives us a lot of energy. It's very good if you don't feel powerless. You get angry, your adrenaline starts going, oh, now I have power. I'm going to right everything that's wrong. Good luck. But when we are angry, what's the result of it? Yeah. In the very opening chapter of the Dhammapada, one of the Buddha's books of sayings that is popular in all the Buddhist traditions, the Buddha said, anger is never solved by anger. It's only solved by love. Yeah. Now, of course, when you're angry, love is the last thing you think of. Yeah. Because you are feeling anything but loving at that moment. Yeah. And sometimes I think we don't really know, we don't understand what love means. We think it's like, oh, this gushy, I can't live without you. You're precious. Everything you do is wonderful. You're the best thing since sliced bread. This kind of stuff. In Buddhism, yeah, love just means, it's very simple. It's the wish for people, sentient beings, including animals, to have happiness in its causes. Yeah, so it's not involved with me and how good I feel. It's caring about others and how they feel. Yeah, I read an article a few days ago in New York Times or somewhere, and they had been interviewing people, asking people, how do you know you're in love? And the thing was, I feel valued, I feel heard, I feel like my needs are met, I feel safe, things like that. And the person who wrote the article said, isn't that interesting? It's all about how I feel. I feel heard, I feel safe, I feel loved, I feel accepted, I feel like I belong. Yeah. And I think in any spiritual tradition, whether it's Buddhism or Christianity or who knows what, the real focus on love is the other person and wanting them to feel safe and accepted and belong and understood. Yeah? But how confused we get about love, thinking it's all about me feeling good. Yeah. Or we go to the thing, well, it's about others feeling good. So therefore, I have to feel bad because I'm taking care of everybody. I'm working so hard to make them all happy. Yeah, to save them from their suffering. I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out. Yeah. That's also not the purpose of love or compassion in a spiritual sense. Yeah. Because I think when we really care about others and we want them to have happiness in its causes, yeah, automatically our own mind feels better. Yeah? Just like when we're angry, yeah. Are you happy when you're angry? No, nobody's happy. We're miserable when we're angry. Okay? But when we can look at others and wish them well, yeah, then our own mood changes. So we get the side benefit of caring about others. If we care about others just because, only because it makes me feel better, yeah, then, it's kind of like, going out and taking drugs. You do it because it makes you feel better. But here, we're talking about genuinely caring about others, and then the side benefit is automatically my mood changes. Yeah. And we're not talking about ushy-gushy love, and becoming a people pleaser. We're talking about respecting other living beings. Yeah. The Utah governor said a few days ago, we have to learn to disagree better. Yeah. Why does having different ideas mean that we have to get angry or hate the other person who thinks differently? Especially when our own ideas, are your ideas cast in concrete? We change our mind, don't we? So, why do we feel like, they're like this, they're the enemy because they think differently? And not only are they the enemy, but everything about them is bad and wrong. And you go through somebody's political profile. Well, they said this, and they said this, and they said this, and this, and I disagree with all of those. Plus the other ones that they didn't say that I know they still believe that I think are despicable ideas. So everything about this person is horrible. Yeah. Therefore, yeah, and we saw this last week. Well, actually, we don't know what the motive in the recent killing was. They still don't know what the motive. But most of the school shootings, the other murders that have happened, yeah, it's because of that kind of view. Everything in the other person is irredeemably awful. Okay. Really? Yeah, think of somebody you don't like. Really? Everything about them is awful? What I find very interesting, and I mention this a lot, because when I traveled in India in the 70s, and the 80s and the 90s. And, yeah, when you travel in India and you're traveling third class on the trains, or sometimes even second class, you have to watch your luggage, yeah, because it gets stolen very easily. And if you're traveling alone, you have to make friends with somebody, yeah. And so you find yourself talking to people that in other situations you may never have spoken to. Yeah, especially when you're a traveler, you don't know the language that they speak. Yeah, then you may look for another foreigner, hope that they speak, that the two of you share some language. And then it may be somebody that if you saw them in a restaurant in where you're going, you wouldn't talk to because they look like the wrong kind of person. But when you're traveling, you don't care who it is. Yeah, because you need to have a companion to look after your stuff, and you look after their stuff. And then it's wonderful for breaking down all of our assumptions about other people, because you're in a situation where you wind up talking to somebody you would have had prejudice against just because of how they look. Yeah. Oh, they look like a person who thinks blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And then you find out that when you start talking to them and you're traveling with them and you share travel experiences and things like that, they're actually quite nice. Yeah. And you can actually have a good conversation with everybody if you're willing to listen and open your mind. Yeah. And this is my experience. Yeah. And I was told not to talk to strangers as a kid. Yeah. But sometimes you have to throw mom and dad's advice out and talk to strangers. And lo and behold, wow, they're nice people. Okay? So the way anger clouds our mind it's so sad, because we form conceptions about people, yeah, that if we don't have any other contact with them that makes us change our attitude, then we just go to this thing of they're 100% negative. Yeah. And that's not true. Mm-hmm. So, if we can learn to care about other people and just wish them well, respect them. Yeah. I do prison work, and when I go into prisons, my friends who don't do prison work say, "Aren't you afraid? I mean, you're a woman and you're going into a man's, sometimes it's medium security, sometimes it's, what do you call it, maximum security. Yeah, aren't you afraid?" No, I'm not afraid. Yeah, why? Because the guys that I go to talk to, be it an individual or a group, they're very happy to have somebody from the outside who volunteers. And I think because I treat them just like I would treat you, yeah, in a respectful manner, then there's no reason to feel afraid. Mm? They love having the groups, They love having people come in, volunteers. Yeah. And I remember one time, one of my friends was running a group. This was in, where was it, Wisconsin. And I went in with him one day. And, we had a group discussion. I threw out some questions and listened and to their reflections and all. And I commented no, my friend, somehow the discussion with my friend afterwards revolved around, how receptive they were. Yeah, they didn't see me as some, do-gooder, authoritarian person who was going to try and push my beliefs on them and convert them. Yeah, but we had a discussion, and I respected what they had to say the same way as I would respect what you had to say. And they responded exactly the same way you would. Yeah. Except sometimes I think people in Dharma classes are more shy about answering questions that I throw out. Yeah, you're more concerned with your reputation. Yeah, the guys in prison, they're eager. It's like, oh, somebody wants to listen to what I have to say. Yeah, and what they say is quite interesting. You learn a lot. Okay, so, just the reflection on the state of the country, and especially the last week, is, we are the common people, and we're the people who have to make a difference in all of this, and be kind to others, especially in contexts where people are often in a hurry, like going to the grocery store and being friendly with nowadays, not with the machine that checks you out, but with the person that checks you out. Yeah, being friendly when you go to the dentist or to the doctor's office. Yeah, or to the Social Security office. Yeah, or to the real one is where you have to change your flight reservation. Yeah, because they canceled your flight. Yeah, to try and treat people in a respectful way, to recognize that they're human beings who just want to be happy and not suffer, just like us. Yeah. And it's not hard to be respectful. It's not hard to be kind. Yeah. Sometimes we think, oh, what did that person, do to me that deserves my kindness? Yeah. Well, just because they're a stranger, it doesn't mean they haven't done anything that benefits me. Yeah. They do their work in society. And whatever work they're doing contributes to the collective good. And I benefit from the collective good. Yeah. So, opening our hearts in this way and putting the anger down. Recognizing that anger it's not seeing the situation clearly or correctly. Yeah, it's making it black and white, good or bad, and, life is messy, isn't it? Yeah, it's very hard to put things in categories that always apply. Yeah, somebody who's nice to you in one situation is mean to you in another. Somebody is rude to you in one situation, goes out of their way to help you in another. That we can't, making hard and fast judgments doesn't really work. Yeah? And it also makes us quite miserable. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that was the introduction. I think we'll just dive right into the text today. Yeah, so we've been doing the book, Working with Anger, and we're on one chapter that's titled, Is Anger Ever Useful? Okay, and So here's some things that we talked about. Okay, is anger a reliable and necessary detector of wrongdoing? In other words, you don't know that something's wrong until you're angry. False. Here's another one. Is anger a good antidote to vulnerability, guilt, and self-blame? Yeah, that one might be good. Because if it's the other person's fault, then I'm not guilty and I don't have to blame myself. And if I feel vulnerable, if I'm angry at the other person, boy, the adrenaline is going. I don't feel vulnerable anymore. So is anger a good antidote to guilt and vulnerability? And no. Okay. Now, the next one. Is anger an essential for winning at sports? Oh, we're going to touch some buttons here. Yeah, because when you play sports, it's like that team is the enemy and you've got to beat them. Yeah. We had one man who came here for a while who used to coach Little League. Yeah. And was it you? No? Somebody came and who used to coach Little League. And he he was saying, or I think even younger than Little League, you know, it was kids like in grammar school, really young, playing baseball. And he said, you know, even the coaches and the adults and the parents would get so revved up about, you know, these kids in 3rd and 4th grade batting the ball around. And it's like, go get them, trample them, run right past them. You know, how you scream out at sports games, yeah? And he said one time he stopped and it's like, wow, we adults were getting so involved, so emotional over 3rd and 4th graders playing baseball. This is kind of silly. And then he said, and then we went right back to rooting for our team and telling them to conquer and trample the other team and blah, blah, blah. So it seems like, you know, anger is what gives you energy to beat the other team, okay? And for those of you who have heard me say this before, yeah, I went to USC at the same time OJ did. Okay, I went to one of his football games because I was dating a guy who wanted to go. And what did the crowd scream? Kill, kill, kill. This whole side of the stadium screaming, kill. So at that moment, OJ would, you know, take the ball and run. But I wonder what other seeds it planted in his mind. We all know what happened to OJ. Yeah. So, you know, is violence, is hatred, is blame really necessary to win? Okay. So here's what the book says. The sports enthusiast claims that anger helps us win the game, but is it beneficial to focus on winning? Uh-oh, a heretic here that thinks winning is maybe, you know, who maybe thinks winning isn't the thing that has to happen every time you play a game. Some people think, yeah, the whole purpose is winning. But it beneficial to focus on winning? Is it worthwhile to reinforce a negative characteristics just to get a trophy? Yeah, it's interesting. You get the trophy. What is a trophy? It's a piece of metal, maybe not bright pink, maybe painted gold, and it has some figure on it with wings going up like this. Yeah. And then you take that trophy home, and that trophy represents your worth as a human being, because you won whatever the competition was. Really? That trophy means, it's an assertion that you are a worthwhile human being because you have that piece of metal? Yeah, think about it. Yeah. Oh, that piece of metal, it proves, whoa, I'm worthwhile. Okay, I got a trophy in high school. You know what for? Huh? Debate? Not debate. No. What? Math. Yes, I did a chalk talk, and I won. And they gave me a trophy. Yeah. What do you do with a trophy 50 years later? Yeah. What do you do with, well, first of all, you give it to your mom and dad. Yeah. Then that they like that. But what do you do with that piece of metal afterwards? Yeah, you stick it in some closet and forget about it. Yeah? Okay. So our minds become very tight when we make us versus them too concrete. My team must win. We have to fight and beat the enemy. Why? Because my team is best, and that's because it's mine. Of course, the other team feels the same way, which is why they're wrong. They feel they're the best team. But yeah, and in our opinion, that's why they're so stupid, because they don't realize we're the best one. Okay, so who's right? Competitive sports may be a socially accepted way of venting anger, but they don't cure the anger. They only temporarily release the physical energy accompanying anger, and in fact, many times drum up anger where there wasn't any. Yeah, it's a nice Saturday afternoon, the sun is shining, everybody's happy. And then you go to watch a football game and, you get all riled up and angry and start cursing and throwing insults at the other team. Yeah. And what winds up often is people wind up fighting after the game. Yeah. So that anger breeds more hostility. We're still avoiding the real problem, which is our misconceptions of people and situations. Can athletes be excellent without being fueled by the energy of anger? Yes. There's a coach who says yes. Yeah. They can concentrate on doing their best rather than on winning. Then, win or lose, they'll have the satisfaction of developing their skills and enjoying the physical exercise, camaraderie, and team spirit. Yeah, anger isn't necessary. If this sounds impractical for the tough world of sports, Consider the story of Coach John Wooden, told by Brian Bureau in the book Beyond Success. Here's a quote. John Wooden remains the most acclaimed college basketball coach in the history of the National Collegiate Athletic Association. In his final 12 years at UCLA, his teams won a staggering total of 10 NCAA championships. No other coach has won more than 4. Yet winning was never the goal of Coach Wooden and his UCLA Bruins. It was only the byproduct of their true focus. Indeed, John Wooden never used the word winning. He believed winning was not in his or his players' control. Interesting. It's not in your control. Instead, he constantly instilled his definition of success within himself and his teams. Okay, here's what he said about success. Success is peace of mind that is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing that you gave your best effort to become the best of which you are capable. That sounds reasonable, doesn't it? A peace of mind knowing that you did your best, yeah, and that you can see you're developing some qualities that you didn't have before. So you feel happy about what you did. Yeah. Fueled then, not by anger, but by industriousness and enthusiasm, the 2 cornerstones of his system, Coach Wooden's teams achieved consistent excellence. He said, no building is better than its structure, and no one is better than his or her mental foundation. Yeah? So your mental foundation is the key to what you're doing. Yeah. Reflecting on the last week, reflecting on the situation of the country right now. Yeah. Why is there so much polarization? Yeah. I've heard stories of, people not speaking to relatives because they're from the opposite party or another party. Yeah. People breaking off friendships because, they don't like what the other people believe in. Yeah. And that's really sad. And it's also stupid, isn't it? Yeah. And given that beliefs are just beliefs, they're just thoughts. Yeah, no one is harming us by having a thought that is different than ours. Okay. Now, I do have to admit that in meetings, over, where to put a vase on the altar, these kind of important decisions, or what color to paint the wall, or, how to hang things on the wall. So these meetings that we have, when I hear an idea that I don't like, that I think is wrong, I plead guilty. I interrupt. I can't bear to sit there and listen to somebody put the idea forth that you should put the vase on that side of the altar, not on the side I want it put. These incredibly important decisions that influence the entire planet. Yeah, and somebody disagrees with me. Oh, yeah. So I interrupt, and I tell them they're wrong. And I don't just say, excuse me, but I have a different opinion. I say, no, put it here, put it there. Yeah, some of you know how it is. Yeah, we have argued for years over the color of which color in the old meditation hall. Yeah, it was painted 20 some years ago. She says the paint is peach colored, and I think it's pink. Yeah. We have never settled that one. And, yeah, she will water the plants any time of day. And I say you have to water in the evening so that the water sinks in and can actually get absorbed in the plant instead of evaporate during the day when it's hot. And she still waters at the wrong time. Yeah. These, earth-shaking disagreements. Yeah. I have to defend my position lest somebody else win the argument. Yeah. So it was interesting, the arguments that are going on in our society right now. And that earlier this week, somebody who likes to argue or debate, there's a difference between argue and debate, different propositions, that he was murdered. Yeah. And we don't even know why yet. It's not clear that this murder was politically motivated. But what did happen immediately afterward was the right blames the left and the left blames the right. Yeah. And everybody says, we have to calm the rhetoric. So you be quiet. Okay. Calming the rhetoric is what we have to do. Okay. And calm our minds and, realize that if we're going to live together, then we might as well live together happily. Yeah, rather than slinging names at each other, let alone bullets at each other. Okay? And so stop the name calling. Okay. Then the next, we've done sports. We're on to the next thing. Okay, is anger a protective biological response? Oh, scientists will say yes. Okay. I've been, in the early days, some of the Mind and Life conferences that His Holiness the Dalai Lama had with Western scientists. And the scientists, some of them were very reductionist, that everything depends on the brain and the chemical, electrical things that are going on in the brain. And His Holiness didn't agree with that. They had some interesting discussions about it. Okay. So some people claim that everyone naturally and automatically experiences anger in reaction to harm. In other words, it is hardwired into us biologically. Yeah. Anger contributes to the survival of our species, for it enables us to defend ourselves effectively. And anger is going to be what stops the existence of this species as well. Isn't it? Yeah. You don't drop bombs because you love people. Yeah. Okay. Anger contributes to the survival of our species, for it enables us to defend ourselves effectively. Without it, we would stand by and let ourselves or our dear ones be harmed. In fact, anger, competition, and proving one's might over others have been indispensable evolutionary tools to secure survival of the fittest. Yeah, this is the new gesture, isn't it? Yeah. You don't reach out to shake hands now. You do like this. Okay. While from a certain, wait a minute. Yeah, of course, they say, sometimes angry behavior gets out of hand. Yeah, just sometimes. You know, like this idea that the person who was killed said about gun rights, that to ensure our Second Amendment gun rights, then there's going to be some unfortunate people who get killed by people misusing guns. But that's okay because it enables us to have the gun rights, yeah, which is ultimately beneficial to protect ourselves from the tyranny of the government. This is what he said. Okay. But of course, they say, sometimes angry behavior gets out of hand. So the real question is not how to eliminate anger, but how to express it appropriately to the correct person at a suitable time. So this is what some people say. Yes, you're angry. You got to express it. How do you do it appropriately and at a suitable time? Okay, that's better. That's going in the right direction. Okay. Okay, the book continues. While from a certain perspective, the above argument makes sense, Buddhism has a different viewpoint. The species that prosper the most, it says, are those in which cooperation is the strongest. For example, a single ant cannot live on its own. If ants within one colony expended most of their energy battling the other ants in the same colony, they would soon self-destruct. They need each other to survive, and they cooperate with each other extensively. Quite interesting to watch ants, how they cooperate and communicate with each other. Yeah, and they're running out, to get some little bit of something and run back and stop along the way to tell their friends, go here, this is where it is. And they run back and forth, doing this because they need each other to survive personally, because they can't survive alone. The whole anthill has to survive. Okay, so they cooperate extensively. Spend some time watching an ant colony. The ants scurry back and forth, carrying building materials and food, many times their own weight. Yeah, they signal to each other where to go so that nobody gets lost, and they work together to ensure the survival and prosperity of the group. His Holiness the Dalai Lama often talks about ants and bees and how they cooperate with each other, and he uses this as an example for us human beings who find cooperation much more difficult than these insects do. Similarly, we human beings have difficulty living on our own. In the 21st century, we are more dependent on one another than in any other time in human history. Think about it. Yeah. Previous eras in human history, yeah. 2, 3 people could live alone. Maybe even as one person, you could live alone off the land for a while. Can anybody do that now? Yeah. If you were on a desert island, could you live alone? Could you keep yourself alive? Yeah. Do we know how to grow our own vegetables, our own grain? How about growing cotton? Or maybe you know how to make synthetic cloth all by yourself. Yeah. I mean, everything we have now comes from other human beings and animals. It isn't self-created, okay? Hundreds of years ago, people grew their own food, sewed their own clothing, and constructed their own dwellings. Now, the vast majority of people in developed countries do not know how to do these tasks for themselves. Yeah? How many people know how to sew well enough to make your own clothes? 3.5. Okay. How many people could build their own dwelling all by themselves? No one. How many people could get, the people who don't live here, get from where you live here without using a vehicle? Using your own 2 legs. Maybe 1. Yeah. Where do our vehicles come from? Other people. Where do our clothes come from? Other people. Where do the sewing machines come from? Other people. Yeah. We need each other to survive, thus making cooperation imperative. Sometimes, despite our human intelligence, yeah, we can send people to the moon. We're trying to get them to Mars. Yeah. Sometimes, despite our human intelligence, these tiny ants seem much saner and more clever than we. Since Darwin, the belief in the virtues of angry self-defense and competitive trouncing of one another has gained acceptance in many areas of society, including education, the arts and sciences, sports, computer development, and national defense. I believe the adoption of this paradigm has been extremely damaging for our world, resulting in a lack of compassion that allows humans to harm each other and their environment. Yeah, because it's survival of the fittest. Yeah, His Holiness Dalai Lama says, it's not survival of the fittest that is most important. It's survival of the most cooperative. Yeah. So a certain kind of competition is good. Yeah. Not with other living beings upon whom our survival and happiness depend, but competition with our own ignorance and uncaring attitudes, which are our real enemies that destroy our happiness and well-being. So we can generate the motivation to improve ourselves and our world because we care about them, not because we want simply to come out on top. Yeah. Survival of the most cooperative. Yeah. And you compete with yourself to improve your own qualities. While the threat of harm may prompt a biological response, this response is not necessarily beneficial, nor is it innate within human beings. Yeah, at these science conferences, the scientists were really told the Dalai Lama, it's our amygdala, You're in danger, your amygdala starts firing off, its neutrons start firing, and then these and other, I can't remember, the chemicals go on. There's no dopamine and serotonin until you think of, somebody you hate who's the one that's the fault, and then your adrenaline starts going, Does that have to happen? Okay. So in unawakened sentient beings who just naturally reply without asking themselves, is what I'm thinking reasonable? Is what I'm thinking beneficial? If you don't ask yourself those questions, is how I'm perceiving the situation accurate? If you don't, then the usual thing is, I'm in danger, I've got to protect myself because I am most important. Okay? So that response may be biological, but it's not necessarily the most beneficial. And it doesn't have to be innate. Yeah. As mentioned above, anger originates with the inappropriate attention that interprets events in a distorted way. Okay, so the source is the mind. We misunderstand the situation because we're seeing it through this teeny periscope of I, me, my, and mine, and think that framing everything in terms of I, me, my, and mine is the best way to see things, and the correct way to see things, and the only correct way to see things. And this gets us in trouble. Okay. So our inappropriate attention interprets events in a distorted way. The body then produces adrenaline, with the mind as the motivator and the body as the cooperative condition. Violent behavior then erupts. Yeah. On the other hand, when the ignorance that supports anger is eliminated through the application of appropriate antidotes, these responses do not occur in the mind, and the vicious cycle stops. When we eliminate the distorted mental factors that bind us, our relationship to our body and our life changes. We can still protect ourselves and others from danger, but we do so without antipathy towards the harmer. We can debate things in this country without seeing the other person as the enemy and the fault. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, a mind free from anger can more quickly find a good solution when there's a problem or a conflict. A mind that's angry cannot think clearly. Yeah. And we just do things, because once the adrenaline gets going, we just do things, and then afterwards we go, what in the world did I do? Yeah. And often we acted out towards the people that we love the most. And then we go, what did I do? Or in the case of the divide in the country, we acted out against our neighbor, who we depend on. Yeah. We live in the same society, we go to the same supermarket. Yeah. You work in the same workplace. We have to find a way to realize that different opinions doesn't necessitate violence and anger. Yeah. Yeah. And if we don't figure this out, the entire country is going to suffer, and probably the entire world, yeah, because this country happens to have a lot of power. So we should be the power in leading cooperation. Yeah. Okay, so there's time for, we have 2.5 minutes. Yeah. There's maybe questions or comments. Yeah.
I've struggled with when the disagreement feels like it's over something deeper than, say, a sports team, when the other person seems to be asserting like, oh, this class of people shouldn't have the right to vote, who currently do, or these people should be kicked out of the country or even killed. Like, in that case, I can try to stop from getting angry, but I don't know how to even engage in that conversation. Do you have advice for that? Like, on the other side, it seems to just be a disagreement on the level of just like even human values or human worth.
Okay, so disagreement over values. Okay, so how to engage. You don't start the conversation on the topic that you disagree with. Okay, that is going to be a dead end because you're revved up and they're revved up, and you don't start the conversation that way. What you do is you form a friendship. Yeah, and you ask that person, kind of, ask them about their family, ask them about their work, the kind of things that you just chat with people when you're first meeting them. Yeah, and we can find something interesting to talk about with everybody. Yeah. Now, okay, you might say, that, there's some things that I have absolutely no interest in. Yeah. Like if I met you and our first topic of conversation was spreadsheets and, what do you call it? Not formatting, but making code. Programming, yeah. Yeah, see, that's how much I know about this. I can't even find the right word. Okay, if I had met her and, I'm all revved up about my computer programming and I say, Venerable Rinchen, did you make this code? And like, why are these stupid people in your company making the code like this? And then, crashes for me. That's not a good way to start the conversation. I met her, yeah. We were squished in the back of a, what was it? It was a truck or a taxi or something in India, going from one Tibetan colony to the other one, to the Anigompa, to the nuns' monastery. And we were squished back in there, and I started talking to her, and she started talking to me. And, we're both going to the nuns' community, and, what are you doing there? And she's teaching them physics. And I'm going, wow, what's that like, teaching the nuns physics? They don't know anything about it. How do you go about that? Yeah. Because I knew about how you teach them the Dharma, but, they think the world's flat. So, so she has to get through to them about that. So we start talking about that, and we became friends. And look what happened. Yeah. So you don't start talking about the topic that you disagree on. Yeah. Yeah, our neighbor down the hill, if you ride slowly by his house, he has a U.S. flag and he also has a Trump flag. Okay, so you know, I haven't been down there in a while to visit because I'm having problems with my legs. But I used to just walk that road a lot. And he and I would stop and talk. And we talked about the plants and we talked about his animals because he has goats and he has sheep and cows and chickens and ducks and and we would talk about the animals, and we would talk about his garden, his wife's garden, and we got along great. There's no reason for us to talk about politics. Yeah. So so we can be friends with people who have very different views, or who do things different than we do. Yeah. Yeah.
Just in response to Venerable Rinchen's question, it reminded me of a time when I was working in government and we were trying to wrap our heads around why employers mistreated workers from a different country. And all of us really, hire consultants, do a lot of interviews. Eventually the upshot was just they're afraid. And we, as a government, could then look at what policies do we have in place that increase that fear for the employer. But something about that was just, when we spent so long on this project, it just came down to fear. Suddenly we just understood where employers were coming from. And it became quite clear how to communicate and, how can the government not be part of that problem. It wasn't like these are bad people who are racist or xenophobic, which I think was the starting point many of us had when we started the project.
But just fear because...
the government has required them to put down a deposit for the workers' health, safety, whatever. So they're terrified the worker will run away or things like that. Or someone is a foreigner living in my house. Yeah. So it was just the human aspect was what clicked for us.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, let's dedicate then.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Thank you, Venerable. So we can all rise, and as Venerable makes her way out of this room. And now I'd like to invite Clyde up to the front of the room. He has a message for the group, and you may be seated.
So, first of all, thank you all for your generosity. I'm standing in a Buddha hall that did not exist 3 years ago, and it's I can literally look in any direction, and what I see is physical evidence of your generosity. And that can be part of my practice while I'm meditating here, while I'm receiving teachings. And generosity is a practice. And I think it's fun to kind of think of it that way. Like, generosity is a way for us to practice with our minds, to look at what our motivation is, and then to actually take an action, and then examine the results of that action. And so if I was to give a recommendation, it would be try it out. try being generous in a way, and then take the time to recognize what is my motivation for doing so, and what is the result. The Abbey is completely dependent on the generosity, and to see it be so successful is alarming. It's it helps me understand how the level of distrust I had in society in general when I first started participating here was very high. And the Abbey has eased me into an understanding that we're actually surrounded by love. So thank you.
Thank you, Clyde. So now